Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 2. And our presenters of MMVC 1-8. So take a look. That's Sheryl. And our next co-presenter is also Nives. So we've got 2 presenters right now. A little bit about Sheryl. Sheryl's coming to us from the United States, and she's been teaching for many years. Her content area was science. Right now she does a bit of science as well as English as a foreign language. Somehow we got you into that through the webheads, I guess. And maybe other ways. Maybe you'll tell us about that one day. She lives in the Central Plains of the United States in Missouri. She's got a bachelor's degree in elementary education, as well as a master's degree in curriculum and instruction and environmental science from Pittsburgh State University. Pittsburgh, Kansas. I didn't know Pittsburgh was in Kansas as well. Okay. And she is passionate about collaborating and learning and sharing. Sheryl is one of the top sharing person that I know when it comes to resources with teachers, colleagues, and anyone who asks. Sheryl will be the first one there with a resource. Here I found something that you might find useful. So thank you, Sheryl, for doing that. Nives is going to, as I said, going to be presenting with Sheryl. And she's coming to us from Italy right now, but she's originally from Australia. And she's been living in Italy for a while. I think she's probably a native speaker, or at least speaks like a native Italian. She teaches from high school nowadays, but she also teaches adults and business English. She's also done a lot of translations because I think she's pretty much bilingual by now. And she's very passionate about, again, about collaborating and learning. I think that's what's amazing about teachers, that they're passionate, at least the teachers that I know are passionate about learning. She's taken a lot of Moodle courses with me. She's an advanced Moodler user. She could probably teach others about Moodle and about technology. And that's it. I think if there's any more, feel free to add. She's been on Moodle for Teachers along with Sheryl, but I think Nives, you've been on since probably 2010, maybe a bit after that, but we started in 2009, so I think you came shortly after. So let me give you rights to both of you. I think about 100, is that possible? I think about 40 joined this session. Maybe they need reminders because I don't see them here. So sometimes we need to send reminders. People forget. So there's Sheryl, and let me also give rights to Nives. Hello there. I'll try to get reminders.
Hi. Hello.
There we go. Thank you for joining us.
Log in. Thank you for having us.
Are we going to get started straight away, Dr. Nellie, or would we like to wait just a few minutes? If you were saying there were some people that have joined, but not, okay.
No. I think that they need reminders. They didn't join because they need to be reminded. So I'll send some reminders out.
Okay.
That's probably it. But anyways, the recording is available. What I thought was maybe I could put you side by side. Is that okay? How do you want the layout? Maybe I'll show you what I mean. Maybe not like that. Like,
yes. No, that's like, what we want.
Like this?
No.
We have a lot of graphs.
Okay, so
we have a lot of graphs.
I like your hairstyle, Nives. Okay, there we go. All right. So everybody can click. You can click on the little circle, and then Nives will appear when she speaks, and then you can click on Sheryl, and she'll appear. There we go.
Welcome to Moodle Mooc Virtual Conference 2018. We are the presenters, Nives, Torresi, and Sheryl McCoy. We will be talking to you about technology. Teach, learn, collaborate. Learning is an adventure for life. That's the vision Sheryl McCoy shares. Teaches and judges online and face-to-face contests, workshops, and courses, developing a fusion of teaching tools, inquiry-based skills, and interests. Sheryl earned a bachelor's degree in elementary ed as well as a master's degree in curriculum and instruction in environmental science at Pittsburgh State University, Pittsburgh, Kansas. Today, Sheryl lives with her family on their sustainable farm in the Central Plains of the United States, where she works and volunteers in a variety of settings, including face-to-face and online within informal education networks. Nives Torresi is a teacher at Classical Studies High School in Italy of English conversation and English drama, English exam preparation, the Cambridge FCE and PET, and English to local corporations. Nives also translates from Italian to English, specializing in business manuals, historical archives, and medical papers. She also works as an interpreter and a mediator for business negotiations. Nives teaches online via interactive learning platforms for business and conversation English courses and language tutoring. She participates actively in online teacher training and development courses such as Moodle for Teachers and Teaching with Technology.
Thank you for that. So this is our presentation. Over to you, Sheryl.
Thank you, Nives. Welcome to our presentation. Our topic is the use of technology in the classroom. Technology is a way of teaching, an avenue of learning, and a reason to collaborate. Technology assists our teachers or learning facilitators by adding a variety of tasks and activities through digital tools. We can engage learners. As we think of tasks and activities in the classroom, we teachers are aware that the learners must be motivated for the actual learning to take place. Teachers provide the basic elements required for a learning environment, allowing the learner to become independent and own their learning.
The trio element of technology, teach, learn, collaborate, works in a continuous cycle. You can jump into the cycle anywhere along the path of learning, from teaching to learning, collaborating to teaching, learning to collaborating, and so on. Whether it is in relation to teachers and learners, teachers and teachers, learners and learners, again recreating a constant flow of information, learning tasks, carrying out activities, applying evaluation, etc., to a fulfillment of attaining knowledge. Technology in the classroom is obviously not as simple as it seems. There are a few important elements which must be in place for a classroom to be technological. First, internet access. Second, fully maintained equipment or BYOD. Third, teachers need to know how to use and teach with the available technology. Fourth, the school and community must be on board. Fifth, students need to be committed to using the technology. That's all well said in a nutshell, but not so simple when put into practice. The following slides will demonstrate the data collected to date from our questionnaire, and in particular, it tells a very interesting story.
We would like to thank all those who completed the questionnaire to date. Your responses have been very much appreciated. If you haven't had a chance to do so yet, you still have time to help us gather relevant data. The link will be shared in the chat or in the MMVC 18 Moodle site within our presentation file.
The decision to create a questionnaire was the one factor that we both agreed would be relative to gaining an insight into teachers' expectations concerning the use and application of digital tools. So we spent some weeks creating ideas for the questions, setting up the form and playing around with the sections. As with all questionnaires, once the data starts coming in, you can gauge the relevance of certain questions and realize that there could have been more or less 1 or 2 questions that would have definitely been imperative. But we are pleased with the responses so far, as it has laid down the foundation for the rest of this talk. However, we are leaving the questionnaire open and would like to stress how important collecting data can be for any type of research, especially in education.
In this slide, Nives and I asked the question, what are you doing now? Most respondents answered teaching, while the next common response was teaching and training teachers. The other responses listed in the data set, what are you doing now, have 10% or fewer responses. This slide and the next relate to demographic information about teachers and how they teach. The second question we examined is an extension of the first. We asked for demographic information to clarify the role of the teacher responding. We related the question of teaching in a traditional manner, flipped or blended, or totally online. We defined the way a teacher works with students face-to-face. The type of face-to-face teaching could vary, such as teacher-centered, one-on-one, or others. The type of students may vary in the face-to-face setting. For instance, the teacher might work in a school or a business. We believe it is significant that less than 6% of all respondents teach using only a textbook. The maxim, the textbook is only a tool, appears to be true. Most teachers shared that they use textbooks with some digital media or equal use between textbooks and digital. The next 2 slides ask respondents to answer questions about their relationship to digital tools. Firstly, we wanted to know, is using a digital tool important to you as a teacher? The overwhelming response was yes. Fewer than 7% responded no or not sure. If we were able to follow up, we'd like to ask those who responded not sure to share their thought process. Secondly, we wanted to know, do you use specific digital tools for teaching? Overwhelmingly, more than 85% of the questionnaire respondents answered yes. We provided a 5-point Likert scale for possible ratings from least to highest technical capabilities. The good news is that most teachers judge their colleagues as having adequate or above technical capabilities. The most popular methods listed in this data relate to ways of learning a new digital tool in a circumstance where the respondent could select their own learning criteria. The most popular was the trial and error method. It would be interesting to know what the rest of the story is. The next popular methods were tutorials, both on the digital tool website or YouTube. Webinars were the next most popular method of learning that might require interactions or making an appointment. But most webinars can also be viewed later when a teacher is on their own time. What the data appears to highlight is that teachers are mostly teaching themselves. That is because there is a dearth of proper didactic opportunities. This data demonstrates that teachers regard productivity as the area they are most willing to explore. Educators selected as the second most important categories of digital tools, student engagement. It's a constant struggle for educators to buy more time so they can focus on what's most important to them, improving the quality and content of student learning. The third highest category of digital apps was the Learning How to Learn category, which is closely linked to student engagement. The more confident that a student becomes about learning, the easier it is for us to engage them in a variety of learning modes, activities, and projects. Language instruction, images, photos, and emojis, badges, and certificates were the next 3 categories of digital tools that teachers responded as important to them. This is all good news. It appears to me that learning is all about the learner.
In this slide, these responses were rated on a 5-point Likert scale. While the majority answered, very important, 5, there are many good follow-up questions. We'd like to discover, for example, what the teachers were thinking that caused them to rank their answer and why. Also, how do we evaluate digital citizenship, yet maintain an effective level of expression in the learning environment? And, importantly, should digital citizenship be integrated in the school syllabus or curriculum? And also, at what class or age level? This slide data really opens up a Pandora's box. Nowadays, most children from early elementary age own a smartphone or have access to a tablet or computer. They are exposed to an influx of information that surpasses their simple yet age-appropriate classroom textbook.
From our own teaching and learning experiences, Nives and I understand that there are many forces and people who are part of our school life. Without even thinking of the internet, when we consider how many groups teachers must interact with, it's amazing. It's also understandable that teachers may find themselves in a dilemma. They must consider how to accomplish all that they desire in communication with all that they need to do. When we consider this dilemma, we discuss the enduring ideas about teachers and learners. As a result, we created this symbolic representation of the overarching theme that holds the learner and the teacher at the center of the education environment. We developed and evaluated questions and data for our digital tools questionnaire to address how teachers interact with their current environment as it relates to digital tools, or one nail in the horseshoe. As teachers, we would do well to pay attention to the various domains that interact with our teaching environment and each student's environment. As we consider each of the collaborative forces that work together with and upon the learner and teacher, an appropriate environment begins to be created. If we can do that, children will increasingly become more self-confident in their learning. The most important process is when the teacher or facilitator prepares the lesson with a digital tool. We all know that the teacher does not want to spend more time on the delivery tool than the content itself, which is the catalyst for the learning to take place. Hence, there is a step-by-step process that Nives and I have created for the teacher, learner, facilitator to follow in order that tool selection becomes a simple procedure.
The next step in the use of technology in the classroom is also the importance of being able to check and control the learning progress. Obviously, each individual student must not feel threatened by the digital tool, but should be intrigued and motivated to evolve during the process. They are using the tool to enhance their own learning at a pace that will not hinder or slow down their learning. The teacher must be able to interact with the tool, collate suitable data from the tool, and be in a position to check that the work is being carried out and completed in each phase by the learner. The next valid step is to provide feedback to the learner, because relevant and plausible feedback is where the real learning occurs. There is an all-important step for each teacher, learning facilitator, mentor, trainer, coach, etc. that will always be addressed, and that is the overall global connection to the learning that has already taken place. For example, in a high school where a graded textbook is being used for language learning, that is English in this case, Then each high school year will have the underlying grammar, use of English, reading, listening and speaking skills, which are constantly reiterated and grow with each new vocabulary level. Therefore, it is always in the best interest of the teacher who is following a set syllabus to ensure that the digital tool will be used in adherence to the syllabus, hence the reconnection to build and enhance the previous learning. The follow-up on that is to ensure that the learner is always on a par with the level of work and the phase of the new learning step. There are many apps which provide relevant data at the end of the activity for which each student can be assessed on each activity. For example, Kahoot even provides the seconds it takes every student participating in that game to answer every question. This is invaluable to be able to assess if even the maximum amount of time allotted for the answer is still not getting the results. Either the question is too hard for all students, if it was the same for all, or in some students only. Those students would then be siphoned out to get some extra activity to reinforce that question requisite.
What are the expected deliverables from the student's engagement with the tool chosen by the teacher to carry out the activity? After the evaluation is done and the connection to the set curriculum has been correlated, the teacher needs to see how the student has provided their response, interaction, and learning with the tool. There are some hypothetical questions. For instance, is the student now self-sufficient in using the learning for the next step? Allow the learner to solve the learning issues in the classroom through the activities.
We came up with the 3 C's goals for collaboration. These are the 3 areas or goals to aim for that we have gleaned from our own experience, especially adding that experience that has developed and grown from our work online through webinars, Moodle courses, teamwork, and sharing our materials openly. The first C is create a strong PLN, because you need someone to discuss ideas and keep up to date with what's happening in education. The second C, communicate on a regular basis, communicating weekly, monthly, or bi-monthly, depending on the type of discussion taking place. The third C, commit. Commit to continuous professional development. Making a commitment to continuing your own professional development is not just good for you as an educator, but also for your learners, who will only gain by being with an avant-garde educator. Plus, it would mean that even though you may not use a new tool, you at least will have heard about it.
This slide contains all the attributions relevant to the images or links used in our presentation. Readings relevant to the work and research used in our presentation are listed here.
Thank you for joining us today here at Moodle Mooc Virtual Conference 2018. Thanks to Dr. Nellie for organising such an important event and providing free continuing professional development live online. Click on our photos to go to our YouTube channels. Remember to subscribe and provide constructive criticism. Okay, so we're at question time now, and there are some questions, some points brought up in the chat box, which Sheryl and I are going to look at right now. So the first one is from Carrie Venkata Sridevi. She said, Is it to make students construct knowledge more than facilitating teachers? Especially in biology, teachers need to develop skills to select the tools and use them at the right time. Well, I think this is the basis of most of our talk that we were saying. Am I right, Sheryl? That we've been saying all along, that what we think is important is the teachers need to know how to use those tools, and the skill set that's needed to use those tools for their students. It's no use just saying, oh, that looks good and let's use it tomorrow in class. The teacher has to know how to use it very well. Like even, for example, Kahoot. It's no use just using Kahoot and writing, 10 questions and saying, oh, it's a game and do it. If you think about it properly, even Google Forms, doing a quiz on Google Forms, if you structure it correctly and plan it out correctly, you can use all the data that tool gives you to then enhance the next bit of learning and know where to bring your students into the next, section of work, or even into the next generation, because students know how to use their smartphone. They know how to play around with it. But they don't know much more than the very simple things. And it's really the teachers that have the knowledge, the pedagogy knowledge behind the learning, and then selecting the tool that goes with what they want to teach. How do you feel about that, Sheryl?
I agree, and that's something we had definitely talked about in our collaborations, that you need to make sure that the tool, you're not just using a technological tool because it's a technology tool. It needs to fulfill a purpose, a valid purpose in improving instruction or learning, or both.
I totally agree. Okay, let's have a look at the next point. Helena says, do you want to read it out, Sheryl?
Yes. Think about your classroom. How can you design the space, and what can you repurpose in your room to enhance learning?
Very interesting. Do you want to try first, and then I'll give my point?
Yes. This is a question that I have actually had to deal with in a variety of different teaching situations. The point of us talking to you about the different people that you need to collaborate is critical, because you can't have desks in a row like you do in the, I don't even know if people even hardly do that anymore, but to have desks in a row that are all pegged out, there's no place for a computer, there's no place to put your paper, there's no place to put anything like that. You can't do that. But I have been in places where I thought that the people who were working in the building were up to the game and were able to accept that I was going to move that classroom around. So I had tables in the back, and I had chairs set at an angle so that all students could see all TVs or media at any one time. I didn't want anybody having to look around or whatever. Well, I discovered that I had run afoul with one of the custodial, but they did not like it. Even though there was plenty of room to sweep around and things like that, they didn't like it. And in the end, I ended up having to change that because they never did understand the point. I learned a lesson from that, and that lesson is I talked to my principal first about it, but what I didn't understand was he may not have shared that with the custodial staff. So what I need to do, or what you probably would want to make sure is done, is that they're included in your school, in your all school collaboration. They do have an important job, and you can't depend on somebody else telling them what you're thinking about. So you've got to have a place, and time and equipment has to be able to be used easily. You can't just go in and expect kids to work at a desk and be all bottled up, but you also can't expect everybody to buy into your new room design without having talking to them about it, so that's what I had to learn about. But the main thing is be comfortable and then practice it, and if it doesn't work, move it around. That's what I had to learn.
I agree. I agree with every point. I think the custodial staff needs definitely to be brought in, because as far as they're concerned, desks are in a row and they're all facing the teacher's desk. Designing the space is important. There's really been big, huge changes in design architecture in the private sector for learning, for facilitating learning. We've seen Google come up with amazing changes to their working atmosphere and pod style or open style learning, and it's more functional and it puts people in a relaxed atmosphere. Not just a matter of repurposing the room to enhance the learning. It's repurposing the room to repurpose learning. That's the way I see it. Okay,
as you change your learning styles, your teaching styles to improve learning styles, that is a good point. And I have taught in those modular type classrooms where there's a pod, like you talked about, and there'll be a team. So the whole basis of all this is you work in a team, and usually it's 4 people, and each person in this pod, they'll have like a hexagonal or a pentagonal or some kind of not circle, not square media center, and there'll be all kinds of media to use in each section where each student is working, and then they are combined together to come up with their joint learning.
I totally agree. Yeah, I've seen that too. So thank you to Helena for her question. She has another point to make here. She says, students and teachers engage in learning through the use of technology and become more familiar with technology by using it. This is totally true in my opinion. In my opinion, the more you use technology, the more you become acquainted with it, the more you become relaxed around it, the more you walk away from being a technophobe and go into becoming a technophile. That's what I found. I found that maybe 10 years ago, I was really afraid of sharing anything online, and for copyright reasons or for whatever, or even being ridiculed. I remember the first time I created my YouTube video for one of the Moodles. Actually, it wasn't the Moodle, it was before that. It was for ELT Techniques with Jason Levine a long time ago. Anyway, and I remember making that video and thinking, I just felt like that, there was no way that anyone would take me seriously after that, until I realized that preparing a video tutorial only makes it easier to get the message across.
I agree that everybody has to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one thing that a teacher, you're going to get to a certain point where you know how to use all these tools, but then you need to start developing sharing processes. And that's how you teach your students, by pulling them into the sharing processes. But in the beginning, it's going to seem unnatural to use like Screencast-O-Matic or to use YouTube or to make the videos. But you just have to say, I'm going to work through this, and then just make some little videos that are just trivial maybe to you, but maybe they're valid for like, where do you live or how do you work or whatever. And I know at first I used those, the videos where SlideShare, or the one where it talks, it does the artificial voice.
Slide speech.
Slide speech. That's right. And it worked very well. But now looking back on it, I'm like, oh my goodness, was I that scared of making my own voice be heard? I mean, I can talk a mile a minute in a classroom, but now over time, you'll start feeling as comfortable talking online as you do in your own classroom. And then that will help your students improve their opportunities to learn.
I totally agree with that. I still can't see you. You're still black. It's giving me a very low signal on your end. But anyway, we'll just go on to the next one. Do you want to read
Yes.
Carrie again?
Carrie.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Carrie has another question. She says, we do educate teachers on the use of technology. Following up becomes difficult. They find to apply them in their regular classes due to various technological glitches. Which model do you use in integrating technology in education? All right. When we were determining what we wanted to put in our questionnaire, these are questions we exactly discovered, and that was the point we were making in the one slide, that too many teachers are having to teach themselves, and that there are not good opportunities for learning. And the way we try to do that is, first off, you need to have your professional learning network, and you need to integrate the technology into that. And Nives and I have participated in Moodles, in other webinars, in school activities. These are all ways to share various issues that come up with technology, to model what we expect to have happen in the classroom, and to build a bank or a base of information that you can share and use with teachers and students.
Totally agree. I don't want to add anything to that. That was perfect. However, technical glitches, just on that point, they're bound to happen. In fact, we are re-recording this today because there was a technical hitch on WizIQ that didn't record lastly, because we are recording our own with Screencast-O-Matic to make life a lot easier to prevent any other technical glitches. At schools, there's always going to be a technical hitch or glitch. Yeah. And what we need to do is just to remember that however we come from a background of using textbooks and paper, etc., with Google Classroom and Google Tools, we are able to use a lot of the Google apps offline. We just need to make that available at the beginning. So when we create a Google Classroom, we need to make sure that those Google Docs are available offline on the computers that the students use in the language lab. So when they sign in, for example, into the computer that day, even if internet is too low, for example, they can use the documents offline, for example, and still work on their work. So I've had that happen to me, but there are ways of overcoming that, or just turn the class around. If you're studying the sciences, for example, I reckon go outside and do something outside. Look at insects, animals, nature. And if you're doing art, then just pack up and go to the nearest museum. I know that's not as easy for everybody, but or maybe just take them into the art room and start painting, feeling what paints are all about, or talking about it, or getting a book out, or just, there are so many things that can be done. We don't need to worry about technology if that day it doesn't work. We can come up with 1,000,001 things. We just have to be confident in what we do.
Yes, and always remember, never give up, never surrender. Always find a way to work through it, you know. So.
I totally agree. Okay, we're going to go into the next point. Carrie now says, did you find out the challenges faced by teachers in the use of technology? Who is supporting them in the process? Well, we didn't have that question specifically in our questionnaire. We didn't ask them who is supporting you in that. But obviously, we would assume that every school has their own tech department. I know from my own first-hand experience that tech departments are not always 100% up to date on everything, but that can be overcome with teachers communicating on what they need. What about you, Sheryl?
Yes, I agree. I know that when I taught some college classes in environmental education, they wanted me to use their learning management system, which that was fine. I did. And I got in there and I was like, I like students when they do their research, which in environmental ed, you do a lot of research. You look at information and data and news reports and things like that. So I wanted them to keep track of that. And there was no like Google Classroom back then. So what I would do is I tell them, you need to bookmark these. And I said, then we'll start with that. And I taught them how to make a hot list. And then I thought, you know what, this is a learning management system. There should be some way to do that. So I went first to my supervisor and asked her if it was okay for me to talk with the technology people. And she was like, yeah, go for it. I explained what I wanted. And so I went to the technology people and I said, can I do this? And I explained to them what I wanted to do. And they said, oh yeah, we can set that up for you. And I'm like, oh, really? So they just added it to our learning management system. So the students were able to put their bookmarks in our system so they can have ready access anytime, anywhere, any place. So those are the kinds of things that just make life a lot more easy for everyone.
I totally agree. I totally agree with that. I was just looking at the next one. The next point was actually from Helena, but it didn't show up. Anyway, let's go on to the next one. That was the last one, actually, by Helena again, who's been very active in the chat. Helena says the variety of online tools draws on individual learning styles and helps students become more versatile learners. Now, I assume that she's talking about also using online tools during online teaching, because I know that Helena, for example, is doing a lot of online teaching recently. And I discovered too with my online teaching that using online tools during the online teaching class makes life a lot easier. First of all, when you do online teaching, you can eliminate the paper, number one. If you have a chat text area, then everything can be done in the chat text, and then you can copy the chat text, bring it over to a Word document or a Google document, and work on it later again. The recording from the live class means that the students can go over it again and look back on points that they didn't understand and replay it until they do understand. Or they can, in a flipped learning type of idea, or they can bring up that point with the teacher by sending a note, an email, or going into the LMS, the written area, to say, look, I didn't really understand that. Can you elaborate on that point, because I watched the recording but I still don't understand it. And there are online tools that you can use to facilitate the learning during that process of teaching online, because what we sometimes forget as teachers, that we've been brought up that the teacher stands in front of the classroom and does all the teaching and the students do all the writing, and the teacher does all the talking and the students do all the writing. But that's not good enough today. I mean, we've done our learning and we're in a position where we're the teachers. We should be listening to the students to see if they are learning or not. So we need to revert the tables and let the students, this sort of flipped learning thing has to happen in the classroom, not just flipped learning outside of the classroom, but flip the learning. Like, this is what we're talking about today. What do you think it means? I love starting, for example, any class with a mind map. So I know that we're going to talk about, graffiti, for example, that day. So I don't get them to open their textbook to tell them, we're going on to Unit 6 today or whatever, or page 190. I don't tell them that. I just walk into the classroom. I go over to the whiteboard or the blackboard, or if there's a computer in there, I use the electronic whiteboard, whatever. I like using the blackboard for mind maps. I think the visual is more effective, but I sometimes even prepare it before. Anyway, I go to the blackboard and I write graffiti in the middle, and I turn around the class and I say, well, what does that word mean to you? What does it mean to you? And they'll look at each other and I said, just anything, just think of whatever it means to you. So I get all sorts of replies and I stick them up on the board as they're saying them. Then sometimes I ask why. Why do you think that? What made you say that? and etc., etc. And then I give them some extra things that maybe they didn't come up with. And then I start explaining maybe a little bit about where graffiti came from, where it started, because I've done my research, obviously, before I walk into the classroom, obviously. And I'm not expecting the students to have done this, because maybe I only get the lesson the night before to know that we're going to be doing that tomorrow. So I prepare it all in my mind, in my head, and then the class. And then by the time we open up the book, they're more confident with the language that we've just used, with the words that they've just associated to that topic of today, and whatever. And then as they're reading, I see them like the line shine, the light shine in their eyes, as if, wow, this all of a sudden makes sense. So that's how I see it. I may be wrong, but that's how I like to do my classes. And online learning, we have to do the same thing. We have to talk less and let them do the talking. What do you think, Sheryl?
Yes, that's a perfect example. What's happening is the purpose of trying to use online or technological advanced tools in an appropriate way is to use divergent or convergent thinking. And what Nives was talking about in the very beginning of her class is she started at a point with the one graffiti, and then she allowed the students and helped the students, encouraged the students to diverge out to their points of what they're thinking of at that moment. So once you get all those listed out, you have diverged out from graffiti and to see how each person is analyzing what you ask, and then you can say, oh, I see how they're looking at it. You can actually look at what a student is thinking about and see where their mindset is when they thought of that idea. And then again, once you have all this information out there at maybe at the end of the lesson, then you want to converge back in on some idea or point. So you gather all that data together, use your technology to put it in a movie or a story or a song or however way, and then you put it together in a package that is reasonable for them to use to learn.
Perfect. Thank you. That's exactly the way I see it. And the online learning has to be done like that. Has to be put into a language that they can relate to. For example, I had engineers, injection molding engineers, in one of my recent online courses. And so what did I do? I had no idea what injection molding was all about. So I went and learned what injection molding was. I used their website and I used their competitors' websites to create all the material that we were going to be using to learn English. So I made it relative to them, and they were then able to teach me in a sense. Like, so the classroom, I'm helping them with their English and providing them a platform for them to improve their English. While they're improving their English, I'm making the lesson that they can engage and motivate, that they know something about. So what was happening in the classes was that while I was correcting their English, they were actually telling me about what they did, and they were blooming. They were really, in the classroom, you could see them coming out, and they really enjoyed it. And they said, oh, we love doing this lesson. Finally, we understand what you're talking about. Because we weren't just talking about, I don't know, sometimes you open a textbook and there's a class structured on graffiti, maybe, hypothetically, going back to graffiti. And, a 40-year-old engineer is not interested in graffiti. He's, interested in words that are going to help him communicate to the Chinese, the Russians, the Germans, the Americans, the Australians, and even the Italians, So they need an English that's clear and they can relate to. Then obviously if I'm teaching a group of housewives who are improving their English to go on a summer holiday or to go on a cruise ship with their husbands or their boyfriends or whatever, and their children, and they want to know better English so that they can order the food on the cruise ship or whatever it is, that's a different, I'm obviously not going to be talking about injection molding with them. The lesson is going to be totally different. So again, online teachers need to learn that when they're teaching someone, they need to go to their world, understand what it is that they want, and then be on their level and learn English, help them learn or improve their English with the words that they're going to be using where they need it. Does that make sense? Yes, it does.
Yes, it does. And everything we do as teachers is all about remembering that learning is for the learner, and that at times we are the learner also, but you can make learning much more valuable if you gear into the learning styles of technology, the tools for the learner. Totally
agree. Okay, that sums up today. We have no other questions that I can see on the chat box. Helen Chinobi, I like what she says here, which I think is really important. Just going to try and somehow grab it. Okay, I don't know why I'm not able to grab it. There we go. She says this. Do you want to read it?
Sure. Using technology in the classroom is always challenging. Yeah. So teaching is always challenging. Everything that we do is challenging if we're doing it correctly. Because what we have to do is actually reach out into a space and time and place of someone that's not us. So just that very fact that we're doing that is a challenge, but it's fun. It's the reason we became teachers, and technology helps us do that better. But don't become overwhelmed in using technology. Remember, it's just like a textbook. Technology is a tool. We use what we know and we've learned and we've gathered to use that as a tool as effectively as we can. But you don't have to come up with 40 million different types of technological apps or whatever just because. Make each one of them be important and count.
Totally agree. Well, on this note, I think we can close our session today. What do you think, Sheryl?
I think so.
Okay, thank you.
Very much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.